Hi, everybody, and welcome back to another edition of Beyond the Cage. I'm your host, Jim Graham, and joining me on the line today, we have a special guest. He will be fighting Leites in Nashville on April 22nd. He is Smiling Sam Alvey. And Sam, thanks for coming back on the show.
Hey, thank you so much for having me back on. And I love the intro, too, calling me special and all that, making me feel nice.
I try. Now, Sam, of course, you're on a awesome win streak right now, winning your last four fights. Your last one coming back at UFC on Fox 23. That was in January, where you defeated Nate Marquardt. Going back to that fight, started off a little slow, but definitely built, and you really started to get him really towards the end there, obviously with your great boxing. Is that how you kind of felt the fight when you really kind of were able to settle in and really figure out what he was doing as this fight progressed?
It really was kind of the game plan. I know I'm typically a slow starter, but I really wanted to win that that first round. And so I came out, and I thought it was close, but I took it there at the end. Last 10 seconds, I really upped the ante. And then it just kept getting better for me. Round two, I started landing a few more. I even dropped him once. And then round three, with the exception of the minute I spent with him on my back, I felt like I was in pretty good control of. But it was a great fight all the same. I was really, really honored to have the opportunity to fight him. And, I can't wait to be able to watch him fight again, too.
Now, of course, every time they're in Denver, or really any place with elevation, it always seems like on the broadcast they bring that up a lot of times. And obviously, being there in Denver, about a mile high up there, I think technically it was Broomfield, Colorado. But how did the elevation affect you, and how did you feel, heading into when you came there, on Tuesday morning, heading into the actual day of the fight? How did the air level? How did you feel breathing and all that stuff?
It didn't bother me at all. A month before, or 2 months before, whatever it was, I fought down in Mexico City, which is about 1,000 or 1,500 feet higher than Denver, and I felt it a little bit there. But I made the changes in my camp. I actually bought an altitude tent, so I slept every night of camp at about 9,000 feet, and I'm doing that for every fight right now. And when I got to Denver, it really wasn't bad. I even came out a week early just to make sure. And, it had no effect on me.
Now, you were kind of taking on the hometown guy there in Nate Marquardt. Did you feel it all, when the crowd not being on your side, did that deter you at all in your performance, or did you not let anything like that get to you actually when you're inside the cage?
No, nothing ever really gets to me. I spent so much of my career traveling to Australia or Brazil or Canada or wherever it is that I'm used to not being the fan favorite when I walk into the cage. But when I leave the cage, pretty much everyone loves me, or at least it's worked out that way so far.
Now, a couple of fights happened that night that were the co-main event and main event. I just wanted to get your thoughts on, just because they were really good performances. Obviously, Jorge Masvidal had an incredible performance, finishing Donald Cerrone in what most people thought wasn't going to happen that way, especially in Cerrone's hometown. What did you think about Masvidal's performance?
He looked great. He really did. And I'm part of a little bit of a betting website, and all those guys were calling for exactly that to happen. I wasn't quite sold on it, but Masvidal went out there and just performed well, pressured early, and just beat him up.
Now, of course, he has a big fight coming up against Damian Maia in a few weeks. How do you think he can pull another upset and defeat Damian Maia?
He could do it, but it's so hard to see it. Maia, he's on a tear right now. Single leg to back take to choke out. And he does it in about 2 minutes and the fight's over. And that's just who Maia is at this point of his career. But saying that, you know how to stop him. You have to stop the single leg, you have to stop the back take, and of course you got to stop the choke out. And Masvidal's got all the tools to do it, but it's going to be an uphill battle for him.
Now, obviously, in the main event, a number one contender match between Valentina Shevchenko and Juliana Pena for the women's 135 championship. Shevchenko, despite spending the majority of her fight on her back, was able to do an excellent transition to get that armbar in the second round to tap Juliana Pena. It has to be impressive to see someone like Shevchenko, a girl who's brought in pretty much to the Wolves, taking on Sarah McMahon. I'm sorry, Sarah Kaufman, and then just has kind of rise through the ranks and kind of culminated there, defeating Juliana Pena in the main event.
Yeah, it's MMA is just one of those sports where you get situations like that often enough. The cream rises to the top, and she's a stud. And that, I mean, she gets the ability to submit a submitter like that is, it's pretty impressive.
Now, looking at your fight once again in Nashville, obviously the last time you were there, some controversy with your fight there against Derek Brunson. So you're still looking forward to go to Nashville once again?
With the exception of me getting my ass kicked last time I was in Nashville, I loved Nashville. I love the city. I love the everything about it. So I'm really looking forward to going out and hanging out in Nashville for about a week. But more than that, I'm looking forward to getting a little retribution. Get there and clear my name in front of the Nashville folks. So I really am glad I get the opportunity to fight there again. I'm looking forward to getting my hand raised this time.
Now, is there anything that you didn't get to do the first time you were in Nashville that you would like to try to do this time around?
A second round would be nice. No, everyone knows how I feel about the Nashville fight. It was stopped. My first one against Brunson. It was stopped too early, but I was getting my butt kicked for the first 2 minutes anyways. So I don't really have a foot to complain all that loudly on. But this time I'm not going to let it happen. I've made some changes since that fight against Brunson, and it's been going pretty well for me. I just have to stick to the game plan and not let him not let the wrestler jiu-jitsu guy outbox me.
Now, of course, your opponent is Leites, former #1 contender in the middleweight division. After a really good start to his UFC comeback, where he was able to win, I believe, 6 fights in a row, he's kind of fell on tough times as of late, losing 3 of his last 4. With your winning streak, does that maybe kind of give you a little advantage that you'll be feeling maybe a little looser and maybe he'll be pressing a lot more, considering he kind of has been, losing a bit lately?
I think it's probably a wash for who has the advantage in that. He's fighting because he needs to win. I'm fighting because I really want to win. And so it could turn out to be a wash, but I'm hoping that with my streak going, with my confidence at an all-time high, that my advantage is a little more than his advantage.
Now, of course, when we were talking about Damian Maia earlier, really great jiu-jitsu guy. Leites is equally as accomplished, a guy who's won multiple world championships in jiu-jitsu. So I'm assuming that's probably been the main focus of your game plan, is if it does go to the ground, being able to get back up quickly, correct?
Yeah, but that's kind of my game plan for most fighters. Most fights I have don't go to the ground if I can avoid it. Not that I don't know how to work down there. It's that the fans love knockouts more. I've submitted black belts before. You should have done it in the UFC even. And I just like hitting people more. People like watching me hit people more. So if I can keep it standing so I can get that knockout, that's going to be my plan.
Now, is there anything else that you've been working on since your last fight in January, leading up to this fight here on the 22nd?
It's just been a good camp. I've been working with some really slick jiu-jitsu folks, and I've been having some success with them. And I think when it comes fight day, it's all this training, all this constant fighting I've been doing for the last year is going to really pay off. And that's the coolest thing about this fight. This is my history-making fight. This is my legacy fight. Because with this fight, I set two new UFC records. This is the most fights in 1 year, and the more important record, the most wins in 1 year in UFC history. So I'm fighting for a legacy, and I think that's where my real advantage is going to come in.
And the year's still young. You could probably, the way you've been fighting lately, Sam, you could probably fight 3 more times this year.
My year starts June 18th, so I've got till then to fight as much as I can. I'm hoping to get 1 more, maybe a Vitor down in Rio, but I know everybody's calling him out right now, so I won't hold my breath.
Well, I'll put it this way, just as a guy who covers the sport, you fighting Vitor makes a lot more sense than CM Punk fighting Vitor.
Yeah, but not if you're Vitor.
Right. Looking at that card there in Nashville, it is headlined by Cub Swanson against Artem Lobov. How do you think that one's going to play out there in the featherweight division, Sam?
I think Swanson's going to smash him. It's as much as I love. I mean, I like the sound of that fight. That fight doesn't make any sense from where I'm sitting. You're taking like the number what Swanson, 2 or 3 in the world against Artem, who's not ranked yet. The fight doesn't make any sense to me, and which means it could be a big upset and shock the MMA world. But more times than not, the upset doesn't happen.
Now, of course, as fans know, you train with Dan Henderson there at Team Quest over in Temecula, California. Obviously, he retired late last year after his incredible fight there with Michael Bisping. What's Dan been doing since retirement? Has he seemed like he's changed at all, or does he seem like the same guy?
He seems like the same guy. He's primarily been in the practice room getting me ready to beat up Leites. And that's, very, very useful for me. Dan is such a good fighter. I mean, he's 46 years old. He still beats up everybody in the room. It's very cool to see what a retired Dan Henderson can do.
Now, of course, normally when you're calling me, you're either training in California or you're at Disney World. A lot of times when I've been calling you for interviews, but you're actually in Rhode Island this time. What are you doing in Rhode Island, Sam?
My training partner, Chris, the Action Man Curtis, he's got a title defense with CES this Friday night on AXS TV. So I'm out here cornering him, getting him ready, helping him make weight, and he's going to be good.
Have you ever been to Rhode Island before, the nation's smallest state?
I have not. I've been to Maine before, but never Rhode Island. I'm actually in Quahog right now, so it's kind of. I know everybody makes a joke about Family Guy, but I'm a Griffin.
Well, he is Smilin' Sam Alvey. You can follow him on Twitter and Instagram at Smilin' Sam, and he will be taking on Talas Leites at UFC Fight Night 108 in Nashville, Tennessee. It's going to be seen on Fox Sports 1 and will air Saturday, April 22nd. Once again, Sam, thanks for coming on the show. I really appreciate it. I look forward to your fight come April 22nd.
Hey, thanks so much for having me on.
Once again, that was Smilin' Sam Alvey right here on Beyond the Cage. Once again, thank you to Sam Alvey for coming back on the program, talking about his upcoming bout against Talas Leites. Getting to the rest of the show, I'm going to start first with Glory 39, a little bit Invicta FC 22, and then end the show by previewing Bellator this weekend. That's a Bellator 175 from Chicago. Looking first at Glory. Glory 39 was this past Saturday over in Brussels, Belgium. 2 title fights on the card, one on the Super Fight Series. That was for the lightweight title, as Dylan Salvador took on Sidachai. Also on the Super Fight card, supposed to be Chai Lewis Perry, a good friend of the show, against Hedzi Gergis. That fight got scrapped at the last minute as Chai was unable to go, wasn't feeling 100%, and decided to pull out of the bout. Looking at what did take place on the Super Fight Series, first ever Chinese fighter to compete in Glory, Meng, or Meng as they were calling him. It's M-E-N-G, so I always think it's Meng, but it is Meng. Took on Molan, was able to win via split decision. An incredible performance by Bazadi against Ben Hinana. And Bazadi, incredible performance. He was able to get a second round knockout, look really impressive. Also, Harut Gagorian took out late replacement Graji pretty easily, end up winning unanimous decision. I know a guy that's always looking for the knockout. Probably wasn't super happy that he wasn't able to finish the guy taking a fight on about 2 weeks' notice, but nevertheless, a very impressive performance for Harut to get another win inside the Glory ring, and that's going to run his record up to 3-1 in Glory. Has not lost since losing a very close split decision to Yonan Kongolo. That was back at Glory 31 last year.
got to imagine that he, since coming over to Glory really about a year ago, 3-1, definitely a guy that, someone that I would say is probably pretty close to a title shot with his name, and obviously Doumbé now defeating Yohan Kongolo. We'll get to that in a bit. He's got to be a guy that's on a short list. I think a fight with Nicky Holtzkin rematching Doumbé might be next for Cedric. So we may see Harut, who has yet to compete in a tournament. At least I'm pretty sure he hasn't competed in a tournament. Maybe we see Harut get into a tournament. Obviously, Myrtle Groenhart, his fight that he had with Doumbé inside of Glory wasn't really all that great, really, by either guy. So Myrtle has a claim. We could see possibly Myrtle against Harut. Obviously, the original opponent for Harut was supposed to be Kareem Benzemore. That fight didn't happen, so that could still potentially happen. But I would say Harut is on a very short list to fight for the title pretty soon. The other Gregorian, Murat Gregorian, he had an equally as impressive victory as he took on Petrov. Very dominant performance by Gregorian, knocking out Petrov in the second round. Petrov had a solid first round, but he could tell towards the end Gregorian was starting to build up steam, and the second round just really kept coming at him. Petrov could really do nothing to continue, couldn't really circle away, and just kept on taking a barrage, and finally succumbed to blows there. And just an excellent performance by Murat Gregorian. Getting to the main event of the Super Fight Series, a guy Gregorian actually just competed against, did lose to, that being Sidichai, the current reigning 155 champion. And Dylan Salvador, I guess these two had faced before, even though Salvador had only fought twice in Glory. I was very impressed with Salvador, obviously, coming into the last Glory tournament, winning that, and then fighting Sidichai. Boy, this was a close fight. I think up until that fourth round, I think he could have went back and forth either way. It could have been 2 rounds Salvador to 1 Sidichai, 2 Sidichai to 1 Salvador. I thought Salvador looked really good. And then in the fourth round, there was a situation up against the ropes in the clinch. Sidichai landed 2 knees, but it seemed like the last one to the body is the one that did the bulk of the damage. And you see Salvador drop. At first, you think it might be a low blow. They even say that on the broadcast. And that's what it may have been until they show the replay, and it clearly was a knee to the body. But he goes down. The referee kind of looks for a second, then starts counting. Salvador is kind of walking around, and towards the end there, when he's getting like 7, 8, 9, you see Salvador just kind of spit out his mouthpiece, and that was the fight. Sidichai with the 4th round knockout. I believe this is his first knockout in Glory. I think he's won all his fights via decision, if I'm not mistaken. Nope, he did knock out David Correa back in his second ever Glory fight. That was in a lightweight tournament back at Glory 22. So this is his first knockout since then inside of Glory. His record, he's only been in Glory since June of 2015, so about 2 years. And he has already rattled up a pretty impressive record of 7-1. Of course, now defending the lightweight championship twice. I still think a trilogy fight with Robin van Roosmalen is going to happen here at some point, but we'll see. Of course, Robin's supposed to be facing the winner of the featherweight tournament, which I'll get to here in just a second. He's technically no longer the featherweight champion because he missed weight in his last fight against Matt Embry, so it is technically for the vacant championship, but he has a chance to become a 2-time featherweight champion as he's taking on a guy that Sidichai himself trains with, number 1, and number 2 says that this guy's even better than him, and that's Pet Penamarang, as he was able to come here into Glory. His second fight, he did win his debut against Stanislav Ranita, and boy, he looked, I guess Sidichai wasn't lying, he looked excellent, had a very good performance against Alexei Olenov in his first bout. Olenov didn't really have too much of an answer for the Thai fighter. And in the second fight, obviously taking on a guy I thought would win the whole thing in Sergey Adamchuk, who, no offense to Bolovsky, he was going to have a tough time beating a guy like Sergey Adamchuk, the former featherweight champion. And this was a very good fight, very close fight, but I think I hope we see a rematch at some point. I think Peppettering did just edge it out. I think the judges did make the right decision. But boy, this was an absolute. This was an amazing fight. Definitely a candidate for fight of the night. And I think Peppettering, obviously, much like Sidichai, throws that back kick a lot. But I thought he really did mix up his boxing well. And I think for Adamchuk, I think maybe taking a lot of those kicks, I think may have given the slight edge to the judges. But a guy that I wouldn't say is normally overly aggressive, somewhat of a counter fighter and throws a lot of punches and bunches, he was really aggressive. He was really going for it in this fight, and I like that Adamchuk. We don't see that a lot. If you go back through his Glory tenure, you don't see that a lot of times, him really going for it. And I felt he really did against Peppettering. And Thai guy came on top. It was a very close fight. I think we'll see the rematch, but he definitely, considering he trains with Sidichai, and obviously with the two amazing 5-round wars that those two had, Sidichai and Robin van Roosmalen, this should be an excellent fight coming up sometime later this year for the vacant featherweight championship. Getting to the main card, that was already on the main card, duh. As that was the featherweight tournament there on the main card, transitioning from the Super Fight Series on the UFC Fight Pass to ESPN3, streaming first and then replaying the following night there on ESPN2. Heading into the co-main event in the heavyweight division, Guto Inosanch took on Jamal Ben Sadiq. I was expecting a little more from either of these two gentlemen in this fight, and they even really, both Todd Grisham and Joseph Altolini were pretty vocal about this fight not being great, and really for Ben Sadiq coming off that great performance and win over Ismail Want, I was expecting a lot more, and we didn't really get it from either guy. Inosanch didn't throw as many spinning attacks as he normally does, and you can kind of credit Sadiq for cornering him a lot, but when he did get him in the corner, that being Sadiq, didn't really do much with it. He did the necessary things to stop the movement, giving Guto a lot of space and obviously opportunities to throw those spinning attacks, but when he got him in the corner, wasn't really unloading, so I don't know if he was still weary of Guto doing something. And for Guto, even though Sadiq didn't really throw a lot of things and was really sitting back and waiting, you would think with that and his style that he would have attacked more, especially with his more hands at his side style, kind of that unorthodox style. I don't know, it just wasn't that great of a fight. Sadiq gets the win. After the fight, Rico Verhoeven came into the ring to kind of stare down Sadiq. I still think that's a fight that could happen next, but I think with this performance, I'd like to see Sadiq take one more. Now, you still have, I know Lant, even though lost to Sadiq, he did win a tournament, so to me he still has a claim to a championship fight. Obviously, Benjamin Ajibuji, who just won a heavyweight tournament, he's currently ranked the #1 fighter in Glory's rankings. He not only won a tournament, he most recently defeated Anderson Silva back at Glory 38, so he has a claim to a championship fight as well. Obviously, Ajibuji's been doing a lot of training with Rico Verhoeven, so I'm not sure if he really wants to rematch his now training partner, but if you want a chance at the title, you're going to have to kind of put that friendship aside just for the 15 minutes that you would fight inside the ring. So I think Sadiq possibly, maybe against Jafar Wilness. You have Milan Brestovic there. Obviously, Hezi Gerges. Chai-Luz Perry. There's a couple of good fights I think that are in there. Obviously, he could even take on Ajibuji. So I just think after that performance, that's not really, to me, a great performance to set up a title fight, but especially a guy considering how dominant Rico has been. I think that's why. You know, if Rico is only into his maybe first, second title defense, all right, let's feed him a guy like Jamal Ben Sadiq, but I think coming off this performance, it's like, man, if you fight that way against Rico, you're going to get destroyed. Getting to the main event of the evening was for the welterweight championship as Cedric Doumbé took on Yohan Congolo. Congolo, of course, holds a victory over Cedric Doumbé in Glory. That was back at Glory 22 with Congolo getting the decision victory. And after I thought a very close first round, a round that I think I would have gave Congolo, really after that, Doumbé did an amazing job of just avoiding anything super major from Congolo and was able to counter back extremely effectively. And it kind of looked at times he was kind of clowning him. You see him kind of stop and doing maybe an exaggerated slip and all that. And I think Congolo, despite pressing forward a lot, just couldn't find the mark consistently enough and couldn't do anything when Doumbé would slip from him moving forward to counter. And it just couldn't seem like he could really get a rhythm into this fight. And credit Cedric Doumbé once again for having an incredible performance. And I could have done without the clowning a little bit in this match, but boy, I don't. It's just amazing to me to see Cedric Doumbé. I mean, I know the guy has an incredible record, but the couple fights I saw against him, obviously his first fight there at Glory 22, and then his fight against Murtha Gronhart. This is a guy in those two fights. I thought, like, you're gonna tell me this guy's gonna dominate Johan Congolo, Nicky Holtzkin in back-to-back performances and capture the welterweight championship? I would have said you're crazy. I really did. But this guy has proven me wrong in these last two fights and has looked absolutely incredible. And mentioned a couple opponents for him earlier on, and I think those are incredible matchups. Obviously, the fight against Myrtle, neither of them had a great performance, in my opinion. A fight that he did win. I think that's a fight that could very well happen. I just think Myrtle's had a couple of shots now. Hasn't obviously worked out there as he's fought his countryman Nicky Holtzkin a couple of times. I obviously think Nicky Holtzkin should get a rematch, just considering how long he'd been champion and the fact he had never lost in Glory up until this fight here against Cedric Doumbé. I think he should get a rematch, and I think that would be a huge fight coming back for Nicky. We'll see. Nicky's fought a very long time in kickboxing and boxing. I think he's had over 150 fights between the two sports, so we'll see. Maybe Nicky starts to slow down a little bit. I'm not really sure. He's not old, but again, he's been fighting for a very long time, and that's a lot of fights, even though I think he is only 32, 33 years old. But Doumbé, again, an incredible performance, and definitely has a lot of exciting matchups coming forward. Getting to Invicta FC 22, that was on Friday. Actually, that was on Saturday as well. So both on the UFC Fight Pass there was Glory, and then Invicta FC 22. Looking at some of the notable victories, Ashley Cummings was able to defeat Amber Brown via unanimous decision. Also, Jodie Iscabel was able to defeat Deanna Bennett. That's a really big win there. That was in the strawweight division. Deanna Bennett, once again, trying to fight at 115. We've had her on the show before. I know that's a difficult weight cut for her, but big win there for Jodie Iscabel. Speaking of strawweight, the actual atomweight champion, Hamasaki, actually moved up to take on former strawweight champion in Invicta, Livia Renata Souza. And Souza said maybe you should stick to 105 there. Hamasaki knocking her out in the first round with a incredible laser straight right that floored Hamasaki. Couple of punches later, and the referee had to come in and stop this one at 141 in the very first round. Very impressive performance by Souza, obviously trying to make a claim back to that strawweight championship now that Angela Hill, of course, has vacated the title, moving back into the UFC. So I think with that performance against the atomweight champion, I would like to think that she'll probably fight for the vacant title, if not just straight out get called to the UFC for her next match. Main event of the evening, Tanya Evinger against Yana Kunziada. A rematch of these two. Originally, the Russian was able to win the fight, but that fight was overturned to a no contest. That was back at Invicta 20. So even though it was a no contest, Evinger wanted to really avenge that loss. And Evinger, and really the Russian as well, put on an incredible grappling performance. That was the majority of where this fight spent. A lot of different positions. The first round, I don't know, I think you probably have to give it to Evinger, but I think there was a lot of great submission attempts by the Russian, Kunziada, in that round. I think you maybe could have went either way. In the second round, it seemed as though Evinger started to kind of figure out the grappling movements, I think, a little better, now being the third round she's seen against the Russian, and I think started to get in the right position and maybe not try to kind of get so much in a grappling war and worry about submissions and get into a dominant position where she can land damage. And then eventually was able to work herself. I kind of was in a weird not side saddle position, but kind of a side control type position. She kind of had the headlock. Didn't really look like much. You saw one arm and then kind of kept on working and then finally got the choke sunk in and then got the tap there at 4:32 in the second round to kind of avenge that loss, quote-unquote, there against the Russian and get the another title defense there for Tanya Evinger. And really with this victory, I think she probably puts herself in the UFC, to be honest. She has not lost a fight, a real fight. She has not lost. I say that because she did lose to Raquel Pennington on the fight to get into the cast there of The Ultimate Fighter Season 18 back in 2013. But her actual last loss was all the way back against Sarah McMahon at Titan FC 19. That was in July of 2011. So she has not lost in nearly 6 years, and she's beaten some pretty notable fighters like Karina Dam, Cindy Danaway, Irene Aldana along the way, and of course, has had those 2 fights here with the Russian Kunziata. And since joining Invicta, that was right after her loss there on The Ultimate Fighter. She has rattled off 7 victories in 8 bouts, obviously having that no contest. But I really think that's what's next with her, because really, she's pretty much beat everybody Invicta's. She has beat everybody Invicta has put in front of her. I'm not really sure how much talent is really left in that division anyway. So I would be hard-pressed that her next fight wouldn't be in the UFC, and I think it's time to see how she would do against some of the women that are currently in the UFC's bantamweight division for the women. Getting to this weekend's fight to end the program, Bellator 175, Rampage versus King Mo 2. It's going to be in Chicago, Illinois. It's going to be over at the Allstate Arena, home to the Chicago Bulls and the Chicago Blackhawks. Excellent card they have put forth together, as it looks like there's going to be like 16 fights here on the card, something crazy like that. A lot of fights, obviously they get a lot of local fighters for the undercard, but looking at the more notable names here fighting, Nohad Lahat will take on Lloyd Carter. That's going to be in the featherweight division. Lahat had that big victory when Bellator went to Israel. I think that was earlier this year. Had an incredible performance watching him perform for his home country there in Israel, in Kiev, and obviously put in an incredible performance, not only winning but finishing the fight too, taking on Lloyd Carter. Also, Jake Roberts will take on Steve Kozlola, former Pride fighter. This will be, I believe, his second attempt to fight in Bellator, if I'm not mistaken. Oh, that's right. He got his bout canceled there at Bellator 154, but then went on later at Bellator 163 to take on Javi Avila. Did lose just 16 seconds into the first round and won a lot. That was a pretty big upset. That was back at Bellator 163. That was McGeary against Phil Davis. So obviously looking to have a much better fight in Bellator the second time around, taking on Chase Gormley. 14-5 is Gormley. Gormley is currently done pretty well as of late. Has only lost 1 fight in the last 6 years. That was to Dan Charles, where he lost via knockout in the second round back at Bellator 143. Since that point in September of 2015, he has rattled off 2 victories, beating the likes of Joey Beltran and Bobby Brents, most recently in his last fight at Bellator 162. However, Sergey Karatanov's one of the best fighters, definitely a very legendary fighter in the heavyweight division, not just with mixed martial arts, but with kickboxing as well. He's done some Gloria competitions in K1, that as well, but this is a guy who's fought a who's who of the heavyweight division dating back to his debut in the year 2000. He's been fighting for 17 years. He's fought in some guys like Marilla Hua, Semi Schilt, Big Nog, Pedro Hizzo, Fabricio Verdum, Alistar Overeem, Alexander Alamenko, Alistar Overeem again, Jeff Munson, Andrei Arlovsky, Josh Barnett, just to name a few. But obviously losing in 16 seconds probably did not sit well for a guy this accomplished in the sport, and for Chase Gormley. Maybe he's going to be on the wrong side there of a very angry Russian Sergey Kharitonov. And I'm looking forward to this fight. This is Gormley's chance to assert himself in the heavyweight division, of course, that hasn't had a championship for a while. But beating a guy like Sergey Kharitonov can go a real long way and can get him some big matchups. Obviously, if Chase Gormley can beat Sergey Kharitonov, I think a good fight maybe against Bobby Lashley. You also have a Justin Wren in there. Czech Congo's always a guy to look out for in the heavyweight division. But I would say Bellator has to be getting close to naming a heavyweight championship. Obviously, there's the big heavyweight coming up with Fedor Emelianenko coming up, and I think that could be a great fight for, well, obviously Gormley. But if Sergey Kharitonov is able to defeat Gormley, we could possibly see Kharitonov against Fedor. And it's incredible that actually he never fought Fedor going back to their time in Pride. He pretty much fought everybody in the heavyweight division but Fedor. He did fight his brother, however, did lose via knockout. That was back in 2006. So we'll see. Obviously, I think that would be a fight for the hardcore fans there, but definitely excited to see Kharitonov back inside the Bellator cage, and hopefully it goes a lot better for him. Really, I'm just looking for a better fight this time around, but Chase Gormley definitely a guy I don't think you want to underestimate. I think is a guy that's a good grappler. Obviously, he's a real big dude, and I think definitely I think he'll be a little closer than the experts think, but I probably still would favor the Russian in this one. In the featherweight division, former bantamweight champion Marcus Galvão moving up to take on Emmanuel Sanchez. Sanchez, one of the best that Bellator has to offer in the featherweight division, 14-3 so far in his career. Had a very close fight, despite getting a win against Georgi Karakhanyan back at Bellator 170. And really, since entering Bellator, has been really nothing short of fantastic, as he has a 5-2 record, or I'm sorry, his 6-2 record, only losing to former champion and a guy that could very well be the champion very soon in Daniel Weichel. He lost to Pat Curran back at Bellator 139, but since losing to Pat Curran, obviously has won 4 out of his last 5. He's defeating the likes of Henry Corrales, Justin Lawrence, and now Georgi Karakhanyan. Now taking on Galvão. This should be interesting because Galvão didn't look a lot of people don't look great against Eduardo Dantes, but at this stage in his career, Galvão, a guy moving up, already I believe he's 35, 36. He's going to have a tough time dealing with Emmanuel Sanchez, who is a very big featherweight. Let's see, Sanchez is listed at 5'9" with a 76-inch reach. Not to mention he's a lot younger than Galvão by about 10 years. Galvão, the former bantamweight champion, he is listed at 5'8", but here's the big difference. A 65-inch reach. Emmanuel Sanchez is just going to be a much bigger dude in this fight, so Galvão definitely is going to have his work cut out for him. I would say Galvão has the edge in the grappling, but with the size advantage that Sanchez has in the strength and obviously the youth, I think that's going to be a big difference in this fight. And Galvão, I think he has to have a fast start and really assert what I would imagine having a speed advantage. He has to get inside out quickly. And the thing is, because of that long reach, he really is going to have to exit very quickly because he can land a great combination, start to come out of the pocket, and Sanchez, who does have good kicks, could easily catch him with a lot of leg kicks. And I think that's going to be something to look out for. Is one is, can Galvão get inside? And two, when he exits, can Sanchez still catch him on the exit with that nearly 10-inch reach advantage that he's going to have there in Chicago? So that's what I would look out for in this fight. But Galvão, good luck to you. I wouldn't. Emmanuel Sanchez is definitely one of the best in the world and definitely a tough way to enter the featherweight division. Main event of the evening. This is going to actually be in the heavyweight division as Quentin Rampage Jackson will rematch King Mo, the former UFC light heavyweight champion, against the former Strikeforce light heavyweight champion. These two first met, I think this was back in 2012, if memory serves me correctly. Actually, no, 2014, which saw Rampage beat King Mo. That was the main event of Bellator 120. Since then, Rampage has only fought twice, once in 2015 where he actually fought with the UFC. He got that stay and everything, took on Fabio Maldonado, was able to defeat him there at UFC 186. Then that went away, and Rampage returned back to Bellator, and in a very lackluster main event there at Bellator 157, a.k.a. Dynamite 2, was able to defeat Sato Ishii. That was at a catch weight of 225 pounds. I think this fight was actually supposed to be either at 215 or possibly actually light heavyweight, but then as the camp kind of progressed, I heard reports that Rampage had ballooned up to close to 300 pounds, and he said, I thought this was a heavyweight bout. So so then they're like, well, I guess it's just a heavyweight fight. Obviously, King Mo has fought several occasions for Bellator and in his career up the weight class in heavyweight. I believe he took on Sato Ishii as well. I think that was at a catch weight of 215. Obviously, he has fought Czech Congo and even moved up to heavyweight to fight Mirko Krokop back at Risen on the 29th of December last year. And that was his last fight, losing to Mirko Krokop. Obviously, that was a short notice fight for King Mo, but it was good on King Mo for even stepping up and taking that fight there against Mirko Krokop. Now take on Rampage. Rampage had a lot of interesting comments, obviously, with that whole weight thing. And then, of course, he went on Ariel Helwani's show, the MMA Hour, kind of said he regretted getting into the sport of fighting. I'm not really sure where Rampage heads at. That sounds like a guy that really doesn't want to fight anymore, and a guy that has always kind of been at odds with motivation and work ethic. And I don't know, right now it doesn't seem like Rampage is in the best head state. Obviously, talked about being away from his family. Of course, there was that horror deal where he thought he was going to get back into the UFC, and then he couldn't, and then he had to come back to Bellator. And obviously, he is getting older. I mean, he's been fighting professionally for a very long time. I brought up Sergey Karatanov. His first fight was in the year 2000. Well, Rampage Jackson's first ever fight, believe it or not, was against Mike Pyle at the International Sport Combat Federation. That was back in November of 1999. So Rampage Jackson has been fighting for nearly 18 years. So this is a guy who's been doing it for a very, very long time and has fought 48 times professionally. This will be his 49th fight. He's 38 years old. Obviously, former UFC light heavyweight champion, a guy I think probably will go in the UFC Hall of Fame when he's done, or at least he should, considering the guys he's beat and what he did for the UFC as well. And obviously the first fight with King Mo really wasn't all that great. I guess this one has the added bonus of being 2 extra rounds. I don't know if that's going to help, but I don't know. I'm not sure where Rampage had. And this is coming from a guy who's a huge Rampage fan. Anybody that's watched the show since its inception a few years ago, at least in this current form, knows that I'm a huge fan of Rampage Jackson, one of my favorite fighters of all time to watch. But it kind of makes me a little sick to my stomach to hear all these comments. And if he says he wants to regret fighting, fine. But dude, you got a fight coming up. These say this after the fight when you're not building up. These are not things to say before the fight, because you can get seriously hurt in there. And, like you said, he does have a family and all that. And, I'm just not sure where his head at. And I'm kind of weary that he's going to go in there flat and King Mo's going to take him down and pound him. And, I have nothing against King Mo, but I'd like to see a competitive fight. I'd like to see a fight that Rampage looks like he has a chance to win. But right now, I'm not holding a lot of faith that we're going to see the old Rampage or even a flash of it. It just seems like a guy that's mentally defeated before he steps in the cage. And obviously a guy for King Mo who is a veteran as well. I mean, King Mo's only 2 years younger than Rampage Jackson, but doesn't look or he doesn't sound that way. Doesn't sound like a guy that is towards the end. And, King Mo's a dangerous guy, has a lot of power, and as a guy you really don't want to say that you regret fighting and, you ballooned up and it doesn't look like you've taken training seriously, because King Mo can put a hurt on people. So, and obviously this is a match for King Mo to try to get back to the top. Obviously he hasn't captured the Bellator light heavyweight championship. He has won the interim championship, and obviously I think he he had an amazing fight with Phil Davis, who is the current champion back at Bellator 154. So I think that would be an incredible rematch to see, especially since that one was only 3 rounds. Love to see it for 5. He has not fought Liam McGarry. I think that would be an incredible fight. So there's still a lot of good fights for King Mo coming up, and not to say this isn't a big fight against Rampage Jackson, but the way things are heading up, it really lead to King Mo winning possibly very dominantly. I hope that's not the case. I hope we get a very competitive fight and we possibly see Rampage go out a winner, but it's not looking good to me. The comments and the weight thing have really deterred me from Rampage possibly putting a maximum effort into this matchup. Once again, I'm your host, Jim Graham. I'd like to thank Sam Alvey for coming on the program once again. You can follow him on Twitter at SmileandSam. Look forward to his fight here in about 3.5 weeks in Nashville, Tennessee, as he takes on Talas Leites. I'd like to thank my partners at the MMAcommunity.com, MMA Fight Fans on Twitter, Flying Brian J, Izzy Garcia on Twitter as well, MMA Fight Club on Facebook, AJ Hiller at MMAsignatures.co, Top Rated MMA, and each and every one that retweets me every week and supports the show and listens to the show, likes it on Facebook, facebook.com/Beyond the Cage Podcast, and of course, subscribes to the show right here on YouTube, youtube.com/Beyond the Cage Podcast. So, I am Jim Graham. Follow me on Twitter at Jim Graham and on Instagram at the Jim Graham. Until next week, thank you for listening to another edition of Beyond the Cage.